Okay, I am David Macoubrie. I'm a local attorney here for 61 years. I worked with Jerry and worked for Jerry in each of his congressional campaigns. When he was running for the House of Representatives, I would be in charge of 6 to 10 counties in North Missouri in that district. And my job was to organize the counties and find a leader in that county who could get the people out to vote and to vote for Jerry. In a Senate election, I had quite a few more counties. I'm not sure how many there were, 20 to 30 probably. But on August 3rd, 1976, during the election, around noon, Jerry came to my office, as he did with each election date, and how he knew, but he generally knew how it was going and whether he would win or lose. And he always won every one that I was involved in, and not because of me, but because of him. But he would come up and we would talk, and on this third day of August, Ken Harden and my son Dana, one of my sons, Dana, was in the office, and Jerry was getting ready to leave, and he said, well, I guess you're going to come to Kansas City for our celebration. And I said, no, I really don't want to. And my son Dana said, well, I'd like to go. I said, okay, I'll go if you want to go. Well, when later in the day we found out that Dana had a baseball game at Trenton, he and our other son David, so he couldn't go. And then Darla, my wife, said, well, I can go. So I don't know exactly who I called, but I called somebody to get our names on the manifest. And I was working around on my back porch before we were supposed to go to the airport. And Darla brings the phone out. I had a call from Jerry, and Jerry said, do you mind not going? Our kids would like to go. And I said, not at all. Please do. Take them. And so that's the way it was set up. Only nobody ever changed the manifest for the pilot. And the reps, we knew them well. In fact, we had island hop in the Caribbean the winter before that with Paul and Dorothy and Darla and I. Well, anyway, the manifest did not get changed, and we were at the Rupp house. I think it was the Rupp or the Kofer house. They were neighbors. Kofer was Tom Kofer, who was a local cardiologist. He came down to a local business and was told about the crash, and he called me back and told me there were no survivors. At that point, Darla and I split up. She went, as I recall, and she may have different views on that. 50 years ago, memories get a little weak, but she went to tell the pilot's mother, Rose Ellen, and call Rose Lee, the sister of the pilot. She and her husband were in Boston, I think it was, and about the crash. Well, stayed there, and Al Menace, who worked for Paul, we got him there, and he and I together told the kids and Dorothy about the crash. And it was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I saw Darla again, and I asked if she'd been home. Well, she had not. And I said, somebody probably needs to do that. So I called home, and a lady answered. I was curious if I'd misdialed. And she said, no, no, this is Linda Saunders. I said, what are you doing there? And she said, we thought you were on the plane. And we hadn't even thought about our kids or our family. And I started getting phone calls from lawyer friends all over the state about, were you on it? Well, obviously we were not. Well, our sons came back from Trenton, and my law partner, Lloyd Cleveland, was out at the airport, and Sheriff Kelsey Reeder confirmed to them that, yes, Darla and I were on it. We hadn't even thought about that. So Darla went home, and I don't know what I did for the next hour, but something helpful, I thought. And then I went home, and we just were amazed that we were still on that list. And like I say, I got calls from all over. My sister, Mary Ellen Valbrock, was working in the campaign as well, but she was in Kansas City. She called, and the word didn't get out very fast, I guess. But the interesting thing is the next morning when I went to work at the bank, and I'd see people, and they'd say, "Good morning," as always. Then they'd think, "Oh, we thought you were on the plane." It was kind of an eerie feeling, but it was that's just the way it happened. And we were very, very fortunate at the whim of two young kids, or we would have been on there with them. We had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with Jerry on campaigns. One story particularly I remember, we had a driver by the name of Moss. I think it's Dennis, but I'm not sure, in a van, and we went to Pattonsburg. And on the way up there, Jerry asked me about the Pattonsburg Dam project. Well, it had been on the books in Congress since the 30s, and nobody had done anything about it. I said, well, if we flooded Pattonsburg, they'd move them up on the hill, and then put a retainer, and that would stop all the floods downstream, including Chillicothe. So I said, you're going to be asked that question. And I didn't have any idea what he thought about it, but until first question right out of the box, they went, what about the Pattonsburg Dam? And he went in and described how beneficial it would be. The Pattonsburg people didn't agree with the idea, and on the way out of town, they were beaten on the side of the vehicle we were in. And Jerry said, I don't think I'm going to be asking you about anything else. I think that's a good idea. But another interesting thing with Jerry, he always was pretty folksy in his presentations when we go to various luncheons, and we had a time schedule that we were supposed to keep. We rarely kept it, but being 15 or 20 minutes late 3 times, you're going to miss one's whole meeting. And I would usually be sitting close up on a point to my watch, and he said, I can't understand whether Dave's trying to sell me his watch or what he's trying to sell me. Well, it was funny. We had a lot of fun, but we worked really hard to get the vote out. And he was such a good candidate. He was folksy enough to really identify with the people. The people loved him and respected him. And there's a lot of conversation now about, well, he would have been president. I'm not so sure about that, because he may have been too honest to get him that deep into this. He was, he told me when Nixon was going to quarantine Congress, and wanted to know if they could do that. And I said, well, he can, but he's going to be hard pressed to handle it. And so he never did. But Jerry's democratic tendencies were good at that time, unlike what I think he would think today. I don't think very well of their tendencies now. I think they're gone off the deep end, but that's for me. But Jerry was a very good candidate, a good friend, and he was your friend, many of our friends, and he was a good, loyal person, and we lost a good patriot there. I don't know of any other stories right off the hand. We had a lot of them in various luncheons that we attended, and they were fun, except I think he overused the idea of me trying to sell him a watch. But of course the people listening, they had not heard that before. They always thought it was funny. Again, we lost a good favorite. He was a good friend.